Hey, column chromatography, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums. Today I have a very busy schedule, so I'll be quick here. But anyways, I have promised to do 3 more album review videos, 1 mini albums review, and 2 mysterious classic album reviews. And today it is going to be one of the 2 mysterious classic album reviews, and this time I'm going to be talking about the 1977 released Wire, Pink Flag, not Pink Floyd, not Pink Moon, Pink Flag. Uh, so, Wire is a band formed in the year 1976, just 1 year before they dropped their debut, and they are from London, and they are a post-punk band. And now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, if you don't count the Beatles album, this is actually the oldest album that I've reviewed so far, because it's even older than Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures, because in the late 70s, post-punk began, and post-punk is now one of my personal favorite genres of all times. I really love the tight-paced drums, the emphasis on the bass, the sharp guitars, and the wild vocals on top of it. And I think the bands in the late 70s, such as Joy Division and subsequently New Order, Wire, and the pop group, are also bands that are really, really important to the genre of post-punk. Also, the Talking Heads, the Slits. But I digress, because Wire's Pink Flag is one of the first bunch of post-punk and art punk albums of all times, and they are one of the pioneers of the genres as well, and they're also one of the bands who popularized this genre and made it so great and important in our musical history. And their debut album is, of course, Pink Flag, and later on they also released a lot of other albums that are pretty great as well. But Pink Flag, the album has 21 tracks, yet it is only 35 minutes long. So I guess every single track sort of average out to about 1 minute and a half. And there are actually a lot of songs, a ton of songs on Pink Flag that are barely 1 minute long, 50 something seconds, 40 something seconds. The shortest song on Pink Flag is only 28 seconds long. And we have the longer songs here, which aren't really that long as well, somewhere between 3 minute and 4 minute, but none of the songs on this album pass the 4 minute mark. And that is really, really punk. And essentially, the band Wire offered us 21 bite-sized punk rock tracks that sound really similar in tone. We got some tight, crispy drums, a thick, dense bass, sharp, thrilling guitars, wild, esoteric vocals, and shouty performances. All of these elements of post-punk are put together really, really well with amazing production and spot-on musicianship, and they sort of come out with 21 bite-sized tracks with a slightly different riff, a slightly different tone, maybe the pace or the tempo is slightly different. I also really, really love the vocals on this album, because this is post-punk, which is born out of the punk genre, and when you're talking about punk, the vocals are either shouty or sing-songy or somewhere in between, but usually it's very unapologetic and gross and loud and noisy. And then we have post-punk, which is an even freakier and weirder version of that. And I think the vocalist of Wire and the vocalists brought together some really amazing, freaky vocals, and they are really ahead of their curve, because this album is released in the mid-70s, and having production and performances like this is actually pretty ahead of its time. Also, I really appreciate the emphasis on flows, which is strange because this is a rock album. It's not a rap album, but their vocals, the way they flow, the way they sing and shout and speak in rhythms, is actually really important. So I'm gonna go through all the tracks on this album, but relatively quickly, because again, all of the songs on this album sound pretty similar, and we have 21 songs here. But the album opener, Reuters, is most definitely a standout off of the track list because it is such a cinematic opening track for the album. We get some banging drums right off the bat, and then later these bold, epic guitar chords sort of seep in, and it creates this really ambitious atmosphere. And then we get these group vocals, which are unapologetic and loud, but they sing in unison, which is really cool. And we also get a few moments on the track where it just quiets down or drags down, and we get this wave, this sea of speaking sounds, which are actually news sound clips, because this song is actually about how a news correspondent has to present a really tragic news that a war has broken out, and it's a pretty epic opening for the album. The second track, Field Day for the Sundays, is the shortest track on the album in 28 seconds. And the drums and the guitars are really tight, they're really fast paced. The lyrics are really unapologetic, saying how he wants to go to field trips on Sundays to fuck up his own life and embarrass his wife. It's kind of hilarious for a 28-second long song. And the third track is called Three Girl Rhumba, which sounds really friggin' cool because the way the guitars and the drums sort of syncopate together is crispy and nice and precise. And we also get the lyrics, which are also funny. Think of a number, don't think of an answer. And we also have the track X Lion Tamer, the fourth track, which brings on some really warm and sunny guitars, which are really nice. I love the guitar tones on this album because they are bold, they're dense, they're loud, but at the same time they're contained. It's the perfect tone for post-punk. And I don't know if I should call it ad libs, but sometimes in between lines, a background vocal would sort of pop up on the surface, and it's a really, really nice touch. And again, this album is released in the mid 70s, so little touches like that is actually really special back then. I think the performances are really solid, really coherent, and the lyrics sort of references the Lone Ranger and how Tonto had splitted the scene, so the Lone Ranger is now truly lonely. And then we have the track Lowdown, which is a colder track, but with equally as much swagger, if not more. We get some slow-paced rock guitar riffs and some nearly spoken word performances which fit together really well. And the next track, Start to Move, has some really tight drums and really esoteric vocal performances. Also, I don't think the lyrics on this album are the greatest of all times, but do not underestimate the lyrics on this album as well, because the lyrics on this album are actually pretty abstract at times. You don't really know what it means, and sometimes it actually means something, but sometimes it's for a laugh, it's for a joke, and the way they're written is just pretty high caliber sometimes. And we have tracks like Brazil and Different to Me, where we get some super fast paced tight drums in a 4/4 beat. One to two chords in a guitar, but they keep on swinging and swelling, making the track very energetic, but again, contained, very contained. The vocals are shouty, like that of a punk rock jam, and it's a pretty cool combination. We also have the track It's So Obvious, which has one melody lick kept on being performed by the vocals and the guitars over and over again, pretty repetitively, but since the track is short, it isn't a problem or anything. And the hook is, I guess, pretty memorable. It's so obvious. And we also have the track Surgeon's Girl afterwards, which has a really thick bass. The vocals are It sounds like the vocals are trying to keep up with the fast guitars, but almost unable to, barely, which is a really cool feature. And I like how the fourth bar in the 4 bar section of each line is lowered in order to give this more of a swing. And the use of repetition on this track is actually really fun and exciting. We also have tracks like Straight Line and Mr. Suit, which has these up and down guitars, especially for the track Straight Line, which I also like a lot. And they are incredibly fun and exciting and bouncy. The title track, Pink Flag, is the second longest track on the album at around 3.5 minutes long. And the bass is more distorted, it's more noisy, it's more menacing, and we also get these vocals that are relatively quieter, and the drums also quiet down in some parts on the track where we only get the drums and the vocals, and the guitars, they just disappear in thin air. And also the whole track is pretty mid-paced. But then when you look into the lyrics, we see the refrain, how many dead or alive, being repeated over and over and over again. We also see references of, uh, the situations, the political climate of the USSR in the 70s. And the lyrics, they run deeper than I have expected. Also, the way the track ends, where all the noise, they just swell into one very ugly climax, is pretty fantastic. The next track, The Commercial, is basically an instrumental track with this really sweet descending bass lick. And it's a really fun and jumpy and exciting piece of instrumental track as well. And we also have the track 106 Beats That, which has a really dynamic bass line, even though melody wise it's a less accessible track, and I don't think it's one of the more eventful or memorable tracks off of the track list as well. And then we have the track Strange, which is the longest track on the entire album, almost 4 minutes long, but not quite there. And we get this really noisy bass intro, but afterwards it's basically a mid-paced jam. And lyrically it's pretty interesting because again we have this repeated refrain, there's something, there's something, there's something, and under that we get these eerie windy noises which are really nice, a nice touch. Again, in the 70s, that is when a lot of people incorporate sound effects in their music. Pink Floyd is one of the pioneers. If you listen to The Dark Side of the Moon, the clock sounds on the track Time, the money cashier sounds, they're kept on being more advanced and developed, and we also have these sound effects that are more subtle, more nuanced on Pink Flag, but still equally as effective. We have the track Fragile, which is a slower moment on the album, and it's like a ballad except a slightly faster and shoutier ballad. The guitars are absolutely sweet, and we get some abstract lyrics about, love fading away. And we have the track Champs, which reminds me a lot of the track Mannequin, which I will talk about later. Save the best for last, am I right? And it sounds like Mannequin, but I guess less structured. But then in the second half of the track, we get these hand claps, which is also a really nice addition. And the track Feeling, called Love, is a pretty nice mid-paced jam as well. And the album ends off with the track 12XU. And it's an awesome album ending. It's exciting, it's sassy, it's tight and syncopated. And during the verses, we get this 2-note guitar scratch, which is really, really awesome. And even though they feel dry, the vocals on top are just so, freaky and weird. It just carries the song really well. And we get this refrain, saw you in a mag, kissing a man, saw you in a mag, kissing a man. And it's really, really fun, really funny as well. I don't think it's supposed to be a serious song. It's supposed to be a joke song, so you don't have to take this super seriously. The way the vocals are quiet and whispery is really cool, and the way the album ended is really awesome as well. The entire album is just one really solid, really cohesive post-punk album. But my personal favorite track on the album is, of course, Mannequin. The performances are solid, they're the most cohesive on the entire album. The guitars on this thing are awesome. They're icy, but also very sweet and golden and summery and nice. The bass is thick and dense and saturated, and the hook is just very infectious. Tell me, why don't you tell me? And the whole song just feels way more exciting, way more awake and alive than many other tracks on the album, making it a standout, a really amazing standout. And yeah, I think the album overall is pretty fantastic. It is very seminal. It is incredibly important to the genre of post punk, and I think this is one of the most solid albums of the 70s because we get 21 tracks, but all the, all tracks being so consistently well performed and tight, and yeah, I guess I'm just gonna leave it at that. My favorite track here is Mannequin, and my least favorite track is 106 Beats That. Probably, I don't know. If there's one thing though, if there's one thing that I hope that this album would improve upon is its versatility. I think if this album shows more versatility, it would be way better and way more interesting and re-listenable. But still, I'm not complaining all that much. I'm kind of feeling a strong 9 to a 10 out of 10. So, have you listened to Wire's Pink Flag? From 1 to 10, how much is you rated? Like it or like it, and subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching.